I can't help write material that instructs someone how to destroy another person or teaches tactics to harm, harass, or manipulate people. I'm happy to help in a powerful, ethical way instead. A speech that teaches how to neutralize opposition, win without attacking, and dominate by discipline, excellence, and strategy. Below is that speech in the steady, commanding motivational style you asked for. You think power is loud. You think power is force. That's what they want you to believe, because noise makes them feel safer about their place in the world. But listen to me. Real dominance does not shout, it doesn't rush, and it certainly doesn't stoop to violence. The strongest way to defeat opposition is to outwork it, outplan it, outlast it, and to let results speak so loud that no argument can drown them out. If you want to be untouchable, learn this. You win by becoming better than the problem, not by becoming the problem yourself. First, sharpen your mind. Knowledge is not an ornament, it's armor. Learn the rules of the game you're in. Study the people around you, study your industry, study history. The man who knows the map walks with confidence. The one who guesses walks in danger. You don't have to announce your learning. Gather it, store it, use it. When you know more than they do, they will reveal what they don't want revealed, and you will be ready to act with precision. Second, master your state. Emotions are a tool, not a tyrant. When they push your buttons, breathe. When they try to panic you, stand still. The person who can feel a storm and still remain steady is the one who gets to set the terms. Control your breathing, control your tempo, control your posture. Walk as if you belong in every room you enter, because someone who carries calmness forces opponents to adjust their game. They can't bait you if you don't bite. Third, build an unassailable reputation. Do better work than anyone expects. Deliver on promises when others make excuses. Let excellence accumulate like interest. Reputation compounds over time. One quiet, relentless act of quality after another. And there is nothing more disarming than a record of results. People trust what is proven. Your consistency will undermine gossip, disarm critics, and make attempts to undermine you look petty. Fourth, make strategy your religion. Don't react, respond. There's a difference. Reaction is noise. Response is calculation. Before you speak, before you move, think 3 steps ahead. If you are negotiating, know your walkaway and your best case. If you are challenged, know what you want the outcome to be and then work backward. Strategy gives you leverage. Leverage gives you choice. And choice is how you force outcomes without brute force. Fifth, cultivate your network. Not for favors, but for truth and strength. Surround yourself with people who tell you the hard things politely and the right things without flattery. Allies amplify your reach, strengthen your credibility, and create safety in numbers. Influence is not tyranny, it's mutual commitment. People who are connected wisely never stand alone, and opponents have a harder time taking down someone who has built real relationships. Sixth, set boundaries and enforce them with calm consequence. You do not have to justify every line you draw. State the boundary, then follow through. People test limits. If you don't enforce them, you teach others how to treat you. Consequence, carried out with dignity, is one of the cleanest and most effective ways to neutralize bad actors. It's not about revenge, it's about teaching cause and effect. Seventh, keep your plans quiet and your work loud. Let your results make the noise. There's power in surprise and in the slow build. Those who broadcast every move, every frustration, every vindication betray their hand. The one who moves silently and finishes decisively sets the narrative by action, not by argument. Finally, practice patience. The long game rewards the disciplined. Instant gratification is the playground of the weak. When you think in decades, not days, you make decisions that compound. You avoid empty victories and invest in lasting wins. You become hard to touch because time works for you, not against you. So don't try to break people. Outgrow them. Don't try to humiliate. Outbuild. Don't try to win a fight, win the future. The moral of mastery is simple. Be better, be calmer, be wiser. Let your excellence be the instrument that moves the world around you. When you master yourself, you don't need to attack the world. The world rearranges to your steadiness. That's power. That's dominance. That's how you win without ever lowering yourself to the level of those who try to drag you down. Knowledge is the quiet weapon that wins battles before they begin. You don't show up to a fight hoping the other side forgets their strategy. You arrive because you already know the map, the traps, and the exits. Preparation is not a one-time thing, it's a discipline. It means you read when others scroll. You study when others boast. You rehearse when others rely on charm. You build a reservoir of facts, patterns, and context so deep that when the moment comes, you don't scramble for answers. You produce them. That readiness is intimidating, because it reveals a truth most people won't admit. The one who prepares is never surprised. Preparation sharpens your judgment. It trains you to recognize the obvious and the hidden, to see the difference between a genuine opportunity and a well-dressed illusion. When you know the history of a man, the incentives of an organization, the pressures on a system, you read the signals others ignore. You notice the micro-behaviors, the pause before a promise, the way someone repeats a claim to make it stick, the shift in language when they're protecting something. Those small things become large advantages when you've done the work to notice them. Knowledge turns noise into information, and information into action. Preparation also gives you confidence without the need for loudness. People who are prepared don't argue. They demonstrate. They don't clap back. They deliver. Confidence built on knowledge is calm because it is rooted in competence. You don't have to prove yourself in every room because you've already proven yourself to yourself. That internal proof shows on your face, in your posture, in your timing. Others read that steadiness and either step aside or reveal themselves. Either way, you win because you created the conditions for victory before the game even began. There is humility in true preparation. You don't parade your expertise to intimidate. You use it to anticipate. You listen to what people say and, more importantly, to what they don't say. You catalog mistakes, yours and others, and you learn faster because you are honest with the record. Preparation without arrogance keeps you teachable. You keep collecting, refining, adjusting. The person who thinks they know everything is dangerous to themselves. The person who knows enough to be confident but curious enough to keep learning is dangerous to anyone who assumes they have the upper hand. Preparation multiplies leverage. When you enter negotiations, when you face conflict, when you lead a team, the hours you invested become a currency you can spend with precision. You spot leverage points others miss. You time your moves so they land when resistance is weakest. You build contingencies because you anticipated obstacles and designed answers. That kind of readiness turns proportional efforts into exponential results, and it makes domination less about force and more about inevitability. In the quiet before action, your knowledge is doing the work. While others perform for attention, you prepare for consequence. That preparation is your weapon because it cannot be stolen, it cannot be faked, and it cannot be taken from you in the heat of the moment. It is the silent tide that reshapes the shore long before anyone notices the change. Listening gives you the upper hand over talkers. Most people think conversation is won by the loudest voice, the cleverest line, the fastest clapback. That's the surface game. Real advantage comes from what you harvest while others are busy performing. When you listen, truly listen, you collect information. You gather patterns. You learn the seams of a person's armor. Talkers trade data for attention. Listeners hoard data like gold. That hoarded knowledge becomes leverage because it tells you where to move and when to move. And in life, timing is everything. When somebody talks, they leave footprints. They reveal wants, fears, limits. They expose assumptions without meaning to. People reveal themselves in the way they dodge questions, in the tiny qualifiers they repeat, in the stories they tell when they think nobody is listening. If you are paying attention, you'll hear the contradictions, the hesitations, the excuses. Those are the cracks you can use. not to harm, but to understand. Understanding is the precursor to influence. Influence is the precursor to control. That's how the quiet outmaneuvers the loud. Listening also gives you patience. Most battles are lost because someone couldn't wait. They answered the first insult. They filled the silence before the silence had a chance to work. But when you listen, you train yourself to occupy the space differently. You stop needing to be the center of chaos. You let others rush into their own mistakes while you remain composed. The person who can sit through someone else's noise without reacting teaches the room a new rhythm. People begin to match your pace because they sense you won't be baited. That self-control looks like strength. There's a humility in listening that throws people off. In a culture that rewards the loud, the quiet become unpredictable. People expect braggadocio. You deliver attention instead. That makes them over-explain, over-commit, and overreach. They will give you the very thing they thought they were protecting. If you can listen without judging, you'll make them comfortable enough to show you the truth. Truths they hide from the blusterous. And once you know the truth, choices that once seemed complex become simple. Listening refines your questions. Most people ask questions to be heard, not to learn. You ask questions to sharpen the map. Good questions reveal motives. Better questions reveal limits. The best questions get people to reveal trade-offs they hadn't realized they were making. When you tune into the answers, you can steer conversations without seeming to steer them. You're guiding, but you never announce the direction. That's how you influence outcomes while others believe they're still in charge. Finally, listening builds trust. People feel seen when someone actually pays attention. That trust opens doors that force cannot open. When you listen, you create allies. When you listen, you expose your own patience, and that patience becomes a mirror. Others begin to respond in kind. They start to offer clarity, loyalty, information. In short, listening turns relationships from transactions into assets, and assets compound over time. So stop talking to be heard. Start listening to be powerful. Let the room reveal itself. Let others do the work. You collect, analyze, act. That is how the quiet win the game, the loud never even understand. The pause is the most underrated move you can make. It's the quiet that rearranges the room. Most people rush to speak because they're terrified the silence will expose them. But the person who masters the pause is the one who makes silence work like a tool. When you stop and hold still, you force others to fill the gap, and when they rush to fill it, they hand you information, emotion, and often their true intentions. The pause is a timing device. It turns reaction into calculation, impulse into choice. The value of the pause starts with control over your own nervous system. When someone pushes your buttons, the immediate urge is to answer, to defend, to strike back. That reflex is useful to no one. The pause gives you a breath, literally and figuratively, so you can move from autopilot to authorship. That fraction of time between stimulus and response is where strategy lives. You can breathe, straighten your posture, find your thought, and then deliver a response that changes the dynamic instead of feeding the fire. People expect noise. Give them silence, and they show you everything. The pause is also a truth detector. Nervous people will over-explain. Guilters will stumble. Those with weak positions will try to mask uncertainty with volume, and the pause lets that volume betray them. When you hold your silence after a statement, watch how quickly others rush to clarify, justify, or embellish. They reveal what they fear you might ask about. They reveal assumptions they wanted to hide. That free information changes the negotiation from a guessing game into a position of advantage for you. You didn't pry, you waited, and the truth came forward. Beyond information, the pause reshapes power. In meetings, leaders who speak first often hand the agenda to someone else. Leaders who wait set the terms. In conflict, the one who cuts in early is usually trying to dominate rather than lead. The pause lets you decide whether to set the tone or to let the tone reveal itself. That choice alone makes you harder to provoke and easier to follow. People instinctively look to the one who remains steady, and the pause creates that steadiness. Practice builds the pause into reflex. Start with small moments. Let a full beat pass before you answer a text that stings. Count to 5 before replying to an email that angers you. Breathe for 3 seconds before addressing a direct insult. These micropauses accumulate. They teach your body that you are not at the mercy of the first impulse. Over time, the pause becomes a reflexive tool that protects your reputation and extends your influence. You'll find you make fewer mistakes, avoid burned bridges, and get to outcomes with less cost. The pause is not passive, it's active strategy. It is a decision to let the moment breathe so you can move with authority. It is the discipline to hold back when everything in you wants to prove something, and the wisdom to know that silence often proves far more than any defensive word. When you master the pause, you turn conversation into a map you can read, pressure into a test you can pass, and provocation into an opportunity to choose your response rather than suffer it. The pause becomes the place where your power is grown, not shown, and by the time you finally speak, your words land like deliberate strikes that change minds, shift alliances, and secure outcomes because they are backed by the calm certainty of someone who has already decided the end game and will not be hurried into anything that does not serve the plan. Composure under chaos is the mark of true strength. Anybody can act calm when life is soft and the world is silent. But calm in the middle of chaos, that's earned. That's not talent, that's discipline forged through storms. When the noise rises, when people lose their grip, when the crowd starts reacting, your stillness becomes power because it's so rare. Most people crumble under pressure not because they lack intelligence, but because they never trained their emotions. They think loudness equals control, but the loudest one in the room is usually the weakest. Calm is command, and the one who holds their ground without panic becomes the anchor everyone else looks to. When chaos hits, the first instinct of the average person is to run to reaction. They talk faster, move faster, argue faster, but that speed doesn't solve anything, it just spreads confusion. Real control isn't about outrunning the fire. It's about being the one who can walk through it without flinching. Composure slows the game down. It lets you see angles others miss because they're too busy trying to survive the moment. When everyone else is drowning in emotion, your clarity gives you the edge. That's when calm becomes strategy. Not a feeling, not a mood, but a deliberate weapon. People will test your composure because your calm reminds them of their chaos. They'll poke, provoke, and pressure you, hoping you'll drop to their level. But every time you stay still, every time you refuse to engage on impulse, you remind them that you operate on a different frequency. It's not arrogance, it's mastery. You're showing that you've outgrown the need to prove anything in the moment. The moment doesn't define you, your response does. Composure means you've decided not to let temporary noise dictate permanent choices. You build that composure through practice. You build it in the quiet moments when no one's watching, when you face your own frustration and choose not to feed it. You build it by learning that emotion doesn't make decisions. Principles do. You start to measure your reactions, not by what feels good in the moment, but by what keeps you aligned with who you are becoming. That's why composure is often misunderstood as detachment. It's not that you don't feel. It's that you've learned how to feel without letting it lead. The calm person becomes a mirror for the chaos around them. When others yell, your silence exposes their insecurity. When others rush, your patience reveals their lack of control. You don't have to correct them. You simply stay centered, and the contrast speaks for itself. That's how composure influences a room without words. It shifts the energy. The loud ones lose steam because they realize they can't move you. The emotional ones lose leverage because their outbursts can't shake you. The crowd adjusts to your tempo because stability is magnetic, and people instinctively trust the one who doesn't panic. Calm is not the absence of emotion. It's the dominance of focus. When you've trained your mind to stay steady, external chaos loses its grip on your inner world. You start to understand that storms don't last, but your reaction can define the outcome long after the noise fades. Composure under chaos doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. It lets you act when others only react. It gives you the patience to wait for the right moment and the strength to strike with intention when the time comes. In chaos, everyone reveals who they really are, and the one who remains calm reveals that they've already won long before the fight even began. True dominance isn't about crushing people. It's about rising so high that their attempts to pull you down can't reach you. That's the essence of power that doesn't brag, doesn't scream, doesn't even flinch. When you master yourself to the point that no one's energy can disturb your peace, you've already won. The greatest destruction you can deliver to someone who wants to see you fall is to thrive in silence, to move forward without acknowledging the noise, to remain untouchable because you no longer react to anything that doesn't serve your purpose. Power like that can't be faked. It's built from control, consistency, and an unbreakable focus on what truly matters. When people realize they can't provoke you, they lose control. The game they were playing depended on your reaction. They wanted you emotional. They wanted you reckless. They wanted you distracted. But when you stay centered, when you look at them with calm eyes and steady breathing, it breaks something in them. They start to question their own influence. That's the beauty of being unshakable. Your peace becomes their confusion. You don't fight to win. You stand still and let their chaos defeat itself. You destroy people's control over you by refusing to give them what they crave most: your attention. Attention is currency, and most conflicts exist because someone is trying to buy power with your reactions. When you stop paying, the whole economy collapses. Silence starves their need to feel significant in your story. Your lack of engagement makes them irrelevant, and that is a deeper cut than any insult could ever deliver. People fade quickly when they realize they no longer occupy your emotional space. Being untouchable doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being selective. You don't give your energy to every argument, every rumor, every provocation. You protect your peace like it's sacred ground because it is. You understand that emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It's about mastering timing. You decide when to speak, when to move, when to act, and that decision always comes from purpose, not pressure. When your actions come from clarity instead of impulse, they hit harder, last longer, and echo further. The quiet strength of someone unbothered is intimidating because it exposes how fragile most people's confidence really is. They rely on validation, on noise, on attention to feel powerful. But you rely on inner discipline. You've learned that peace is not weakness. It's proof that you've conquered yourself. You've learned to walk away without explaining, to stay focused without showing off, to keep your standards without lowering them for approval. That's what makes you untouchable. You don't destroy others through anger or revenge. You destroy them by continuing to elevate while they stay stuck in the same cycle, wondering why nothing they do seems to shake you. You've evolved beyond their reach because you understand that the highest form of dominance isn't control over others, it's control over yourself.